Okay, so my ideal Thomas is a Furness Railway G5 built in 1913. You might be saying, but the G5s were built in 1915. Well, my answer to that is prototype. Yep, Thomas is a prototype of the G5 in my headcanon, not the LNER, the G5. The Furness Railway G5. Thomas worked as a station pilot. Thomas worked as a station pilot for a few years. For a few months. Later, Thomas was sent to a factory, a coal factory, or a coal mine, whatever you want to call it. So Thomas worked with a Furness Railway K1 prototype, who was built in 1888.
Whoa.
He was very nice. Who turned out to be Edward. Before he came to the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway in late 1913. Edward was a kind engine, and he worked with Thomas. Thomas occasionally would go into the dark tunnel, but most of the time he wouldn't. As I said, in 1913, Edward was sent to the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway. Thomas was the only engine working on the coal line. But luckily his brother Timothy came. Him and his brother Timothy came to the Northwestern Railway in 1914, where he would reunite with Edward. But on the night of September 21st, 1914, Timothy would crash into a ravine and die. Thomas was devastated by the news and started shunting in the trucks nonstop and banging the trucks. And at that point, Thomas had to pull a goods train for the first time on the NWR. Thomas was good at it, but he also kind of wasn't. And no, this is not Thomas in the trucks. Along with Edward. But on the coal mine, Thomas hated Edward. But after that, he didn't hate him on the coal mine, but when they came to Sodor, Thomas hated Edward. Because Thomas believed that Edward, that only one engine could have blue paint. And that engine was Thomas. But eventually they were proved wrong by working together by pulling a ginormous ballast train to Kildane. They were both happy about it and became friends again. And soon Thomas sometimes got to go out of the yard and pull passenger trains. He was very nice towards the other engines, but towards Adam he didn't really like. Thomas had mixed feelings about Adam. He felt like something was going to go on with him, but he was completely wrong. Adam was a completely nice engine, but just with some difficulties. But is this about Adam? No. So anyways, as I was saying, Thomas just pulled. Yeah. Everything else was the same, but Thomas and Gordon happened in 1929. Thomas and the trucks happened in 1930, and Thomas and the coaches, whatever it's called. Thomas makes a mistake. It happens in 1931. And eventually in 1932, a new LNYR Class 27 comes called James. But on his first day, he crashes, and Thomas saves him, and by reward gets a branch line. Eventually, Thomas finds one of the old coffee pots called Glenn. He was the last surviving one. But Thomas and Glenn got along. Normally when Thomas was done with his work, he would go visit Glenn and talk to him. They were both friends. And eventually, Glenn would be moved to another place, and that other place would be it would be for Corey. And Thomas got his own coaches too in 1932. Thomas liked these coaches. They were named Annie and Clarabelle. Thomas also, but in 1959, Thomas got another. He called it the special coach. Her name was Isabel, but she wasn't very special. She was rude to Annie and Clarabelle and just caused a fuss. But the new engine, Donald, and his brother Douglas, accidentally hid Isabel from Thomas, which would result in the missing coach. So Thomas pulled, and at the end, So that's my idea of Thomas. I hope you enjoyed.